Hey guys, welcome back to another episode of the Bronco build. In the last episode, you saw me bring in my Bronco into my garage, and later on that night, I went and online and ordered some parts. And while waiting for those parts to arrive, I went ahead and addressed some of the issues in the front end regarding um, uh, the melted locking hub and the C's brake caliper. So in this episode, you'll see me tear into the brake caliper and do a overhaul, and you'll see why I put this up. And yeah, so let's get into it.
So a lot of my videos had music playing in the background, so majority of them won't have any sound. So instead, I'll just talk over the videos and share some of my thoughts in the process of this job. So you just saw me knocked out the bottom and top pin of the caliper. I then freed up the caliper from the rotor. I then removed some of that built-on hard mud off the brake fitting. You can see me just struggle getting some leverage to free up that fitting. So what I ended up doing is placing the caliper back onto the rotor to gain some of that leverage back. Once I freed up that caliper, I took it to my workbench. Then I attached the air pressure line to where that fitting would sit and free up that piston from the housing. Make sure your finger is out of the way when that comes out, because you're not gonna have a good time. Ask me how I know that. And then when you're taking out these dust boot, make sure to take note of how that thing is pressed in, because that caught me when I was reassembling. And then that was me taking out the O-ring and expecting the contaminants inside. Here I'm just left with the caliper housing. So what I ended up doing is just grinding off some of that rust, and then after that I wiped it down and spray painted it. And once the paint dried up, here's me preparing to reassemble, blowing some air through the fittings to make sure that there is no contaminant inside. So here's me just lubing up the O-rings with brake fluid. Next, I lubed up the piston walls and the outer diameter of the dust boot and inner diameter of the dust boot as well. So the night before, my camera died and I didn't get any video recording of me trying to press in the dust boot. But here's the next day of me trying again. And this is where I said that, like, when you're taking apart your dust boot, it's good to note the orientation, how it was pressed in. And I spent many hours on this and getting super frustrated, and I ended up tearing through one of the dust boot. And yeah, I ended up just getting a refurbished one, so fail on the overhaul. So here's me just studying how it was fitting in. As you can see, there's that groove where I thought that lip was where it was supposed to sit. So once you actually successfully do your brake overhaul, I just applied some anti-seize on where that caliper pins are gonna slide into. I then replaced the brake pads, ensuring that the pads sit properly in the groove of that caliper. And after that, it's pretty much just the reverse of your disassembly. And then once the caliper is back in its place, I then went ahead and refilled the reservoir tank 3/4 full from the top. And then lastly, I bled the brake lines, starting with the brake furthest away from the reservoir tank. Alright, then once I was happy with the result, I went and sprayed it down with some brake clean and wiped it down.
Okay, so there you have it, guys. I hope you found that entertaining or helpful, and learned what not to do in a brake overhaul. I learned my lesson, and a lesson learned is a lesson worth sharing. So, next episode is gonna be me tearing into my 4x4 locking hubs. So, who knows what's gonna happen in that one? I do, but stay tuned. See you next week.
Oh yeah.